So I did it. I made it through. And we're going to talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp: QuantumMania, which is now available for you, for everybody who has Disney Plus. You don't have to go anywhere. You just have to log on to Disney Plus and enjoy this film with audio description. I believe it was by Jedediah Barton, although Disney Plus really did not want me to know who did the narration this time around. That's just me trying to be like, whose voice was that? It's probably deluxe. Disney uses deluxe for a lot of their things, but I can't vouch for that also. Anyway, so yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp: QuantumMania has been the film that has gotten very maligned results from critics and from audiences. It did okay at the box office because it's a Marvel movie, so it opens big, and then people still end up going to see it because they're like, I'll see it. It's a Marvel movie. And for me, I may end up talking about things that are spoilers with this film because we have to talk about things about this film in order to know. I'm going to try to avoid things that I think actually are spoilers and not spoil them for you. Some things I don't think are spoilers, but I just think people haven't talked about them because they think they're spoilers. But we have to talk about some of those things. And right off the bat, I'm going to talk about one of the things I liked about this film that I haven't seen in many reviews. Actually, no reviews. I think people think it's a spoiler. And it's a way to talk about it without it being a spoiler. And that is MODOK. MODOK is in this movie. I don't know why people aren't talking about that enough because that's amazing. And it's one of the few things that I love about this movie. Is that MODOK is here. It's not necessarily who MODOK is supposed to be or how we're supposed to get MODOK. However, we got MODOK. MODOK is a really hard to pull off character in a live action Marvel film. I always thought the Hulu series was Marvel saying, hey, this is what you get. This is the MODOK. This is all you're going to get in life. You know, we can't put this into a film. It doesn't make any sense. And I was like, okay, well, at least Patton Oswalt's doing a good job with the voice, so I'll take it. Thanks. I enjoyed that show. We should have more than one season, but nope. They figured out how to put MODOK into a film. So MODOK is here, and MODOK is actually fairly entertaining. So I kind of like how they did it and how they pulled it off and how we got MODOK, and that was kind of brilliant. So points to the team in this film for that. But this film is kind of messy. And I love Ant-Man. I recently did reviews for the first two films. So I went into this film with high hopes because honestly, last summer I watched Thor Love and Thunder, and I liked that. I liked Taika Waititi. I liked that film. It wasn't Ragnarok for me, but I still gave it like an A-. It was like right below Ragnarok is like one of my favorite MCU films. It's up there. It's easily top 5. So the fact that Love and Thunder just didn't hit as high as that, I thought it was better than the first two. So I was still at like a high point for that franchise. So I don't just like hate on everything that's been made in like the last, well, since the snap, since we brought everybody back. But there seems to be an idea that Marvel movies now are just not very good. And Peyton Reed gives them a lot of reason to believe that. I don't know what happened with Peyton. I don't know what happened with this film. I don't know what they were doing. This film feels like it was originally intended to be one of the TV shows on Disney Plus. It's so shitty in places, but it's fine in others. The film starts off like thinking that, like, oh, we're going to go about this film like a normal Ant-Man film. And it's got kind of a quirky beginning to it where Paul Rudd is giving us some expository backstory about, you know, where we've been since the last whence we saw him, whatever. And why Cassie is so much older now than ever before. I mean, there was a snap that was in there, I guess. So, yeah. So she's a lot older now. She's getting arrested and thrown in jail and stuff. She's following the footsteps of her father. None of that really matters because we spend about 5 minutes in the real world before we're in the quantum realm. This film finds a way to try to get you in the quantum realm as quickly as humanly possible. So that way we can be there for the duration of the film. And then right at the end, you spend about 5 minutes at the end not in the quantum realm, just wrapping things up at the end. It's very much the entire film is in the quantum realm, which means I'm assuming for the sighted audience, this film looks like a giant CGI nonsense. Just tons. This film looks like Avatar, probably. So, yeah, it gets you there really quickly, and it sucks everybody in. So it's the core, I don't know, the core five, I guess. We need character names for these kids too, by the way, because like there are multiple Wasps, and I think they refer to both Wasps as Wasps, not like Queen Wasp or old school Wasp or new flavor Wasp or. And then Cassie has a costume now, so you know, we got Hank Pym too, who doesn't really seem to transform into anything, but he's still riding around, so I guess we just call him Hank. But the other people all have suits on of some kind at some point during the film, so the overuse of the term Wasp is a bit much for me, because I'm trying to figure out like who's who at what points and why we're all calling people the same thing and why people don't have new names. So, there's that. We also have jettisoned a lot of side characters from the Ant-Man universe. Gone are basically almost all of Paul Rudd's little crew. The Michael Pena TI little group there, they're not in this at all. And they're also Cassie's mom and stepdad, Judy Greer and Bobby Cannavale, are gone. Supposedly, our Marvel agent, who also crossed over into WandaVerse, played by Randall Park, is in this. I missed that. If he is, he just stands in the background and waves and he's like, "Hey guys." I don't know. If he is, it's very small. He did not make a substantial dent in this film. So, yeah, it focuses on the main five characters and just goes from there, and it sends them down into the quantum realm, where Hope's mom had been the whole time, you know, when she was a kid growing up, and we learn about how Michelle Pfeiffer, was running around with all these things that are in the quantum realm. There's like a whole world and society down here. It becomes a little bit like Avatar. And there's also a very dangerous person down here. And if you've seen Loki, you've met him. And his name is Kang. And that shouldn't be a spoiler, because if you've seen any of the upcoming Marvel films, you'll notice that there's one film that's titled after him. So his presence in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is sort of like Yeah, he's here, and he's not going away. He's going to be a presence that you can't get rid of. So I know that's a little bit of a spoiler for people who are like, "Oh, that means he doesn't die in this film." I'm not going to say that. I think you just have to watch it, but also you have to understand. You have to learn what Kang is and what it means for the MCU and why the Avengers will be fighting him. And why that is. But no, it does not necessarily mean what you think it means when I say it. So that's, again, not a spoiler. Because this film refuses to make sense at all. This film tries really hard. Really, really hard not to make any sense. Um, I had so many thoughts. I was like, okay, so Janet was down here and she lived like this whole life, right? She was down here for years. And they talked about madness, and we saw a little bit of her, and she was trying to like get the signals back out to her family in the second film. It kind of feels like they weren't planning this film when they were doing Ant-Man and the Wasp, when they were trying to get Janet out. It feels like they didn't know. Nobody told Peyton Reed that there was anything in the quantum realm. So he kind of made a different film. And then the problem that I have is that we also sent Ant-Man down into the quantum realm. And that's how he survived the snap, was that he was down there. And he apparently didn't encounter any of this, nor does anybody ask him about it. Like, we're supposed to forget that that's how he survived the snap and how he just kind of pops up later. How he just, whoop, I'm back. And they're like, oh, wait a minute, you're alive. I think we all forgot that moment in the Avengers films. And nobody really addresses that here. So I don't know why Janet had a wild and crazy adventure where she met all of these people and things and had like a relationship. Actually, had like multiple relationships. I mean, she could accomplish quite a bit in the quantum realm. Meanwhile, Scott just sat there. I don't know. It just kind of stared off into space. I got nothing. You know what I'm saying? I got, and nobody found him either. None of these creatures or anything found him. And the film doesn't really care to explain that. It just kind of hopes that you don't ask that question. And I can't help but ask that question in my head as to why Scott didn't see any of this when he was down there the first time. Why no one found him. But Janet had this great adventure, and now we're reliving it. So anyway, there's some cool concepts here. I'm not going to say that there aren't. There's some things that they do with like a probability factor that I thought those scenes were entertaining. I loved the Baskin Robbins version of Scotland. Will only make sense when you see it, but it's like every time the film does something wrong, it does something right to counterbalance it. And that's the entertaining thing about Ant-Man, is that it's nonsensicality, if that's even a word, ends up kind of making up for the negative nonsensicality. Like it's got things that it does that don't make any sense, and you're like, I don't like that. And then it does things that don't make any sense, and you're like, oh, this is really fun. I'm okay with this. Cool. So you take the hits along with the wins, and it kind of works itself out. I wouldn't give this film a thumbs down. I would just say it's definitely not as good as the first two. So I didn't really like Kang. I know we have like a Jonathan Majors problem right now where like I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about his performance in any sort of way. And it's like, oh, I thought Jonathan Majors was really good. I actually didn't even think he was very good. I thought the way that they wrote him was sort of like emo, and just sort of like, he was just kind of like, I'm Kang. I just really want to leave. They put me down here and I'm not supposed to be here. And I just want to go. Can you help me? Can I leave? I was like, this guy, this guy, this guy is the big villain. This guy. And some people have told me that they thought Jonathan Majors was their favorite part of the film, and I was like, now I'm thinking, what? What? He feels like he's in an entirely different film, to be totally honest. Feels like Jonathan Majors was in a film where they were like, okay, you might get an Oscar. And he was like, yes, I'm on top of that. I will give you the most dramatic performance of the year. And he went for it. And everybody else was in this film with, like, creatures that you drink. And I don't know, like, just really off the wall. And MODOK. So, you know, I mean, just the fact that MODOK is in this film says so much. So, yeah, he's in a different film. I don't know how else to tell you about Jonathan Majors. He's in a different film. There's a film that he made, and there's a film that everybody else made. And his acting is nowhere near where everybody else's is. Everybody else is having fun being in this film. It's like they read the script and they're like, oh, this film doesn't make any sense. Cool, we got this. We'll be fine. And he read the script and he was like, Oscar. I will get my Oscar. So, yeah, whatever. He's honestly the least interesting thing about this film. But I feel like Peyton Reed just really didn't care to make the film make sense. I heard quite a bit about Thor: Love and Thunder, and that was not Taika Waititi's final cut, and that was the cut that Marvel made, and then everybody just kind of blamed Taika Waititi for the cut. I don't know if that happened here, if somebody at Marvel exerted too much control and came up with this version and just did this. Yeah, our audience won't ask questions. They don't care anymore. They're just gonna watch a film, and that's kind of the problem with where Marvel movies are headed, though, is if the film largely doesn't make sense, it's not going to be memorable. The problem is that yeah, I can watch it because I like these characters, because you've established characters previously that I liked. So that's why I'm here. I'm here because the first one worked, because I like Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. Had that first film not worked, I wouldn't be here for the sequel. So when you do that to the new films, when you make films like Black Widow and the Eternals with new characters, well, not Black Widow, not a new character, but as a spinoff, you know, if they made a Black Widow 2, I would not give a shit. I don't even know I'd see it. I guess I'd wait to see who the villain was, and if the villain was cool enough, sort of like with Venom, when I didn't feel like I wanted to see more Venom, and then they were like, oh, Carnage is going to be, I was like, God, I don't know, I can't pass on seeing the first cinematic incarnation of Carnage, you know, so they got me with that one, but that's, you know, Marvel can't always do that, you know, you can't always find ways of roping people back in, and I think you're going to end up sort of petering people out if you don't focus on the quality of everything you put out, and you're just focusing on the quantity. And that's a little bit obvious here that that's what happened. It's not as good as Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. It's not as good as Thor: Love and Thunder. It's not as good as Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. This is definitely a step backwards. However, it is better than the other two films I just named. Black Widow. It's better than the Eternals. It's better than Thor: The Dark World. Which, I mean, like, there are other films, so, not my favorite Marvel film. As far as the audio description goes, I think the film, it's really hard for me to gauge on did the audio description tell me what I needed it to tell me, while also realizing that the film itself, I felt like the film was inadequate. So I think there are problems that I have with the film, and not being able to see it and directly compare it and be like, was I actually missing that? Were these, like there's a birthday party sequence for Cassie later on, and I'm like, why is her mom not there at her own daughter's birthday party? Like, really? Judy Greer was so busy that you couldn't find her one day of filming to do this one scene? Yeah, but she's not on IMDb at all. Like, she just never came, I guess. So when I say I have problems where I'm like, what is that? I think it's just with the writing. It's sort of like everybody is Wasp. So if we're not going to come up with new names, I would say audio description wise, it would be easier to always say Janet, Hope, and Cassie, because anytime Wasp was used, I was kind of like trying to figure out who likely that would be, because it seemed like everybody had their suits with them. They've all figured out a way to have a suit that they can wear, that sort of like pops on and then pops off. So that way they have street clothes, and then they have like a suit, and then they go back to street clothes. So I don't know. It's just, it was a little confusing. I think it's just the script, the general script of the film. I'm trying to think of like, is there anything where I felt like the actual audio description itself was deficient? I don't really know. The thing about the quantum realm is it sounds nuts. So I guess possibly it could have leaned in on describing it even more. There's a scene where like a building moves, and like we find out the building was alive, and Scott makes some sort of reference to it. I didn't even really know the building was there to begin with before it moved. I don't know if that was something that we could have hit more in the description, but then again, if we're suddenly pointing it out, then maybe that's telegraphing. I don't really have a good answer for this film because I don't think it's a very well written film. I don't think it's so hard for me to criticize the audio description, because if the things that I think I'm missing are generally missing or generally don't make sense within the context of the film, then I don't think it's anything. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Maybe this is the audio description we deserve. Maybe this just is what we get. So that wouldn't surprise me at all. I think the film does try to do a pretty good job with in its accessibility with the audio description, and that's the best I can say, is that I don't feel like it didn't try. I feel like it was there. I didn't think the audio description was the reason why I was lost. I think it honestly was the structure of the film and the fact that the film just felt like Peyton Reed was just either somebody took this film from him and chopped it to bits and then released it and then said, this is not a director's cut, this is Kevin. If Kevin's doing these cuts, then he needs to stop. He needs to stop doing Marvel cuts. Whoever is editing these films for Marvel, please let the directors do them. That's why you hired them. There's no way that Peyton Reed made 2 coherent films and then was like, you know what? I'm just gonna get drunk and high and make this 3rd film. So it doesn't need to make sense. They're gonna pay me anyway. I just don't believe that happened. I don't even think that Peyton Reed is that good of a director, but I still just believe something's wrong here, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know whose fault this is, but I gotta give the cast props for showing up and trying and making this film entertaining, and bonus points for MODOK. So all that said, and the fact that I like Ant-Man and I'm a little bit more inclined to enjoy the film as it is, I'm actually going to give Ant-Man and the Wasp: QuantumMania, I'm going to give it a B minus. It's probably a C plus, but it gets MODOK points, so it goes up to a B minus. I don't know if you know that there's MODOK points, and it immediately bumps you up a half of the letter grade. It's probably like a C plus movie, but with MODOK, it gets to the B minus. So good inclusion on MODOK. That's it. That's where it is. It's not the worst film in the world. It's not doom and gloom. It's not the worst film Marvel's made. So, but man, is it a step down from the last two. So noticeably so. And it not a great introduction for Kang either. I kind of wish they could pivot. I kind of wish they could pivot away and find a new villain for the Avengers. I don't know. I know some people like him, so I know that there's going to be pushback on that, but the first time I saw Josh Brolin as Thanos, I didn't feel like, I wasn't like, ooh, this is going to suck. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I don't feel that here. Although technically, I guess the first time I saw him was in Loki, and I didn't hate him in Loki. So I just don't know what's happening here with this version. So anyway, there's a mid-credits sequence and an end credits sequence, so you can stay for those and enjoy that. Enjoy those. I won't spoil them for you, but anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And you can go to my website, macmovieguy.com. You can go to Twitter or Instagram and follow me at macmovieguy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what is audio description, where you can watch it, and you can go to the ADNA.org. That's the ADNA.org. And you can look up Jedediah Barton, who I think narrated this film. Disney didn't really want to. That's a complaint that I have. I should have put this earlier. Everybody's gone by now. But if you stayed, can we indicate that the credits have started? Because basically what happens is this film ends and they say something really generic, like they're like shapes and colors happen, and then nothing. Jedediah didn't get to. I think it's Jedediah didn't get to describe any of the credits. None of the credits. So he just says something about how like there's colors and shapes, and then he just goes dead silent and nothing's happening. I'm like, are these credits? Usually we say credits roll or directed by or something. But no, Disney and Marvel were content with totally leaving blind audiences just sitting in the theater going, the fuck is happening? You know, the fuck is this? And then you just sit there and you wait because you know that there's a mid-credit sequence. So you're like, oh God, oh, there's a mid-credit, and then you wait because you're pretty sure there's going to be another one, and you're like, oh, there it is, and you know. So let them describe the credits. I mean, honestly, what is the problem here? You know. Anyway, those are just some thoughts at the end. That is the one problem that I do have with his audio description, is at the credits I was just sort of told to fuck off. Just fuck off and sit there. Are these the credits? You will not ask questions. you do not deserve that knowledge. There are colors and shapes. That is all you need to know. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll have another review, and I'll see you guys on the other side.